Okay, this video is to help you prepare for Wednesday's test. And we start here in number 3 where it says the Gemara. This is your study guide, part 2. So the first thing that we're going to do is discuss for a moment the question of the Gemara and the Mishnah. Here is the text of the Gemara. Gimel Mem, Gemara, this is the text. Amai, why? Meaning, why does the Mishnah say that we should pay money? Ain tahataina marachmana. Hashem said, an eye for an eye. Eima ayin mamash. Let us say that it means literally an eye. So instead of taking money to compensate the victim, we should do what the Torah seems to be saying, which is take the eye or the hand of the person who caused the damage. This is the Gemara's question. This is a kashe. This is a challenge to the Mishnah, specifically where the Mishnah said that the nezek is calculated by seeing how much money the victim lost in income. Okay. So if you look in your study guide, so we've done basically this part, and now we're going to focus on the first answer. Okay, so I highlighted the key terms to help you navigate. So the answer begins with lo salka daitach, da'at. Don't think like that. Meaning, don't think that it means literally an eye for an eye. Detanya, and this is the Braita. This is answer number 1. Yachol, you might think by mistake. Simait yado, that if somebody blinds a person, misameh no, we should blind the damager. Katayet yado, that if he cut somebody's hand, mekateet yado, we should cut the damager's hand. Shiveret raglo, if he cut somebody's leg, mishaveret raglo, we should in turn go to the damage, take off his leg. That's what you might think, and you might think like that because it says ain tachatain. Talmud lomar, but the Torah says make adam umake behima. The Torah talks about these two cases: somebody who injures a human being and somebody who injures an animal. And since it uses the same action, make, the same word, so the Braita learns that this is to create a comparison, and it teaches us ma make behima letashlumim, just like in the case when you injure an animal, you pay, and that's it. Af make adam, so too in the case when a person injures a person, letashlumim, it's going to be payment, but not an eye for an eye. So we go back to our study guide. So now we know the mistake that we're trying to prevent is that eye for an eye means literally, and that's incorrect. And it's incorrect because the Torah teaches us two cases, make adam and make behema, a case where a person injures an animal and a case where a person injures a human being, and uses the same word to connect them, to teach us that they're comparable. And the comparison is that just in the case of an animal that is injured, the damager pays, and that's it. So too, when a person damages a human being, he pays, but there's no other consequence. That's what we learn from the comparison. Okay, now let's go to the question, to the second answer that is going to be given. Okay, so the second answer start here. Vim nafshecha lomar. If you want to say, Arehu omer lo tiku kofer nefesh rotzeach asher hu rasha lamut. The pasuk says that the court does not impose a penalty of payment for somebody who's been sentenced to die, which means if A murder B, the court is not supposed to go to A and demand that he pay money for the crime that he committed. There's no payment. So this pasuk implies something. That's what the pasuk says. We don't take money from a murderer. Aval, but this is implying that ata lokeach kofer lerosh evarim shein chozrim. But you do take payment in a case where a person lost a limb. So we learn this by implication. By saying you don't take money in that case, that's implying that a different type of case you do take money. So let's go to the study guide. So we saw where the answer starts, where it says im nafshecha lomar, and the mistake that we're trying to prevent again is that an eye for an eye is to be applied literally, and we know that that's incorrect because the pasuk says we do not take a payment from the murderer in the case where he killed a person, but that's implying that a case where somebody injured and did not murder, in that case we do take payment. So that's another way that we know that an eye for an eye does not mean literally an eye for an eye. Okay, the third answer, if you have your notes that we had in school, you're going to find that answer in line 17 of page 7. And that answer has to do with the following. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says like this. Well, suppose that the damager is already missing an eye, or he's missing a hand, or he's missing a leg, and now he goes ahead and causes the same type of injury on a victim. Well, it's impossible then to do to A what he did to B, because A is already missing that a hand or an eye or a leg, so you can't do it. It's impossible. Okay, so therefore you can apply it an eye for an eye literally. But wait a second, maybe we should do the following. If A does have a hand or an eye or a leg, maybe in that case we should take it. And when A does not have that organ, then we should make him pay. So sometimes we should do money, and sometimes we should do an organ literally. So that, says Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, is not possible, because the pasuk says mishpat echad yeh lachem, which means there should be one mishpat, one law, one system of law shall be for all of you, should be uniform. So therefore you can't say that sometimes we're going to take a limb and other times we're going to make the damager pay. You can't do that. It has to be consistent. So since it's not always possible to take a limb, therefore we can never take a limb. That's Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's answer. The fourth and final answer that we see in this Gemara is from Rabbi Ishmael. And his answer is very simple. What he's trying to again teach us is that we cannot apply an eye for an eye literally. And we learn this from the pasuk that says, Kasher iten mum ba'adam, just when a mum, a injury is caused in a person, ken inatem bo, so shall be given in him. Well, the pasuk is telling us to give. When A causes an injury to B, if we were to take A's organ, we're not giving anything to B, obviously. Since the pasuk is telling us that there's a giving, that means that there's a compensation. There's something that is being given from A to B. An eye for an eye literally is not a type of compensation. It's a punishment. It's a harsh, it's a cruel punishment to A, but it's not giving any B anything. So says Rabbi Ishmael, since the pasuk says that when there's an injury, there must be a giving, iten, so iten implies that you're giving something to the victim, and therefore it cannot be an eye for an eye literally. So what we have so far is 4 reasons why we cannot take an eye for an eye literally. Okay, so if you look in your study guide, we now have answered this. Now, number 5. So let's take a little bit at how these answers work. So questions answer the answers that were given in 1, 2, and 4 are different from number 3. Because in number 1 and 2, we were focusing on what? On psukim that are showing us why we cannot apply an eye for an eye literally. For example, in question number 1, we're talking about answer number 1 is based on the comparison between injuring an animal and injuring a person. That comparison teaches us that we do not actually make a person lose a limb. Answer number 2 was also based on a pasuk, and a different pasuk telling us that in a case of murder we don't take payment, but that implies that in a case of injury we do. Answer number 4 was also based on a pasuk. It was telling us that the Torah is showing us that in a case of injury, you're giving something to the victim. So giving implies that you're giving him something, not just punishing the damager by losing a limb. Now, number 3 is a different type of answer. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's answer is based on logic. He's saying, wait a second, it's not always possible to do an eye for an eye because the damager may not have that organ, so you can't apply it. Yeah, we did use a pasuk to explain why we can do it sometimes and sometimes not. But the basic answer of Rav Shimon Bar Yochai was based on logic, meaning that the damager does not always have that organ to lose as he caused to the victim. Okay? So answer number 3 is based on logic. Now, number 6, which we discussed in school, is important to know the following. The Gemara presented 7 different answers. We saw 4 of them. And we did not study why the Gemara is not completely convinced by them. They're somewhat of an answer. The Gemara challenges those answers. We didn't study that. Just be aware that the Gemara is not completely satisfied with those answers. So at the end, how do we know that an eye for an eye means money and not really literally losing a limb? The answer is Mesora. Right? Mesora is from the word masar, to hand over, to pass over the tradition, which means that the only way that we can be sure that we have it right, that we're understanding the Torah properly, is when we look at our tradition, our Mesora, which is the Torah Sheba'al Peh. And we discuss, for example, by etrog, the Torah doesn't specify what fruit to take on Sukkot, right? The Torah just says take the fruit of an Eitz Hadar, of a beautiful tree. Well, that's pretty general. So how do we know what it is? We rely on the Torah Sheba'al Peh. That's our Mesora. Mesora is that teaching that is passed down from teacher to student in every generation, from parent to child. And that's how we ultimately know what the Torah means at any particular place. In fact, even more basic, how do you know that an aleph is an aleph? Maybe an aleph is a bet, maybe a gimel is a dalet. How do you know what the letters are? Again, because of Mesora, we know from the beginning of time that an aleph is an aleph and a bet is a bet. Okay. Then finally we discuss why did the Torah write it that way? If it doesn't mean an eye for an eye, why write like that? So the answer to that is very simple. It's showing us the severity, how serious the crime is. When A causes B to lose an organ, what really should happen in theory is that A should lose that limb, because A has lost his right to that limb because he caused somebody else to lose it. Except the Torah did not actually make him lose it, but it's just trying to show the severity of that. Okay, the skills, we should be able to separate the question from the first answer, and we should also be able to separate the second answer from the first answer, and we should also recognize the key terms so that we know how to navigate. Okay, so for example, if we look over here, so we know that Ama is where the question begins. Ama is a question word, is one of the 3 words that you need to know. Lo sal kadaitach is the answer. The Tanya is a key term. This is where the Braita starts to present the first answer. Yahol is introducing the mistake that you're likely to make. And Talmud Lomar is the pasuk that teaches us why that mistake is a mistake. We don't think that it means literally, because makeh adam, makeh behema. And then here is making a comparison. Okay, so those key terms are crucial because they really help us navigate our way in the Gemara. Okay, we should, the 2 ideas that are being compared, that's the key term ma and af, right? And finally, look at Gemara Brura will help you, because you guys divided the text of the Gemara and you have the different pieces of the answers, so that will help you do that. Okay. And I also included here the text, and you can play around with this test to format it using the skills that we went over here. So you could divide text. For example, you could do this. You could say here, I'm going to divide because that's the end of the question. And then you can divide further like you did in Gemara Brura, just to practice. Hope this helps you. Please email me so that we can help you further if you need.